A. Ramachandran began his career as a painter and is best known as a painter. But he has also been deeply engaged with sculpture for over 5 decades. He began sculpting in the mid-1970s, but became more active and began to work on an ambitious scale in the 1990s. Since then, his sculptures have been exhibited mostly with his paintings. Recently, the Vadera Art Gallery organized a retrospective of his sculptures for the first time in Delhi. It was a discovery for art connoisseurs.
He stands apart a little because also as a painter, if you look, he stands a little apart from the mainstream. So he does the same with sculpture. I mean, it may not be part of the mainstream, but what is the important point is that that he has a similar position, whether it is in painting or in sculpture, in relation to the mainstream of Indian art. In both these cases, he stands apart a little because he has his own ideas, his own interests, and both as a painter and a sculptor, he likes to take up an idea, then explore it, and over a period of time. So while he was exploring the problem of color and how color can create a language of its own in his recent paintings, similarly he has been exploring with sculpture because he was very clear that he's going to cast them in bronze. So if you're trying to cast them in bronze, what kind of a language can you build up? And can you go back to the traditional methods of making sculpture in India or within the larger Indic tradition and try to absorb some of these things into sculpture? Because in painting, if you think that he's trying to deal with this idea of figuration and decoration in relation to each other, you can see the same thing is happening in a sculpture. That maybe in the sculptural format, the associations or the way they come together might be a little different, but the ingredients are the same. This coming together of the figurative and the decorative was a characteristic of many Indian traditions, both in sculpture and in painting. So that is one thing that you can see across both the painting and sculptures of Ramachandran.
When I look at the different mediums, each medium has its own possibilities. And I explained that sculpture was a little laborious for me. But even then, as Tagore has said, there is a part of you which would like to express certain kind of qualities, which is not possible through either line or color or words or movements. So that means there is also another aspect of me which was dying to get expressed through some other medium. So occasionally when I got very much saturated by painting, then I take up sculpture. But even now I would like to do many sculptures. I have no dearth of ideas.
It was a chance encounter with a Ram Kinkar sculpture in what was then Trivandrum that spurred Ramachandran to go to Kala Bhavan at Vishwabharati University in 1957 to study art under the great master. There he studied not only painting but also learned from Ram Kinkar many deep aspects of art, though he did not make any significant sculptures as a student. Ramachandran had his first glimpse of a Ram Kinkar sculpture in an album of photographs while rehearsing for Rabindra Sangeet for the birth anniversary celebrations of Tagore in Trivandrum. It was a work titled Santhal Family, Ram Kinkar's most remarkable monumental outdoor sculpture. Recalling the moment, Ramachandran wrote, "A shiver ran through my body, as if I was struck by lightning when I looked at it. It was a unique experience, akin to a minor enlightenment. That was the moment that I made up my mind to study only under Ramkinkar. Going to Ramkinkar at Shantiniketan became a pilgrim's voyage rather than seeking a qualification in art." Ramkinkar opened Ramachandran's inner eye and, as he said, "Let me venture into the vast world of art and creativity to explore all the possibilities of my inner self and to find my own path and discover the promise of never-ending innovations."
Kingarada says when he was doing the portrait of Gurudev, Gurudev was almost, I think after 1 year he died. So he was in the late stages. So when there was nobody around, then he called Kingarada and he said, "Look, whatever you see, catch it by the throat and don't leave it till you get it. And once you get it, don't look back." So, you know that he says, I try to do things like that. गर्दन से पकड़ो, छोड़ो नहीं. तो that इसका मतलब ये है, the responses you get from the nature is so precious. The moment you get that, you don't leave it, don't take it, take it by force and hold it till you get the essence of it in your work. That is what he meant.
Well, I mean, maybe this might have worked at the back of his mind, or at least when you know people who have been doing all these multiple arts, that thinking in terms of working in multiple mediums become quite natural. So, I mean, everybody did that to some extent in Shantiniketan. Nandalal did in so many mediums. He did murals, paintings. He also did a few sculptures, printmaking, etc., etc. So similarly with Vinod Bihari, Ramkinkar, of course. So all of them worked in different mediums and different art forms. So thinking of doing work in different art forms could have come to him from his association author. So sometimes maybe if you work with artists who are working in a single medium, you might grow up thinking that is the main way you work. But if you're working with a number of people who work with different mediums, then you might grow up thinking that it is natural for an artist to work in different mediums. So I think that's what's happened with him.
Ramachandran loved clay right from his childhood, and as a boy learned to make simple human forms from clay from the woman potter who came to his house to sell pots. According to him, the only medium that I loved working with right from my childhood was clay. I loved to feel it pressing through my fingers and obtained a certain tactile pleasure of handling it. In her 1994 book, Art of the Muralist, critic Rupika Chawla says, Ramachandran's sculptures encapsulate his childhood memories of Kerala, particularly his visits to the Krishnaswamy temple in Attingal. They reflect the profound visual and emotional experience of the deafening sound of bells, drums and nagaswaram echoing and re-echoing in the corridors, and flowers vaguely discernible in the light of the oil lamps, and chanting of the people around, eagerly stretching their necks to catch a glimpse of the gods. Not surprisingly, in 1974, Ramachandran cast a group of smallish sculptures, including some portrait sculptures. Most of the sculptures he made around this time were expressionistic. The first portrait sculpture he made was of his son, Rahul, graceful in form and charming in the detailing of his hair. The next was of his daughter, Sujata. The third was a composite sculpture where Ramachandran joined his own head with that of his artist wife, Chameli. He says, ever since I started working seriously on sculpture and casting them in bronze, I discovered many interesting possibilities. I started using my own image as part of my sculpture, most often in composite forms like a tortoise, bull, lion, fish, or garna, on which I installed the central figure. Ramachandran cast a group of small bronzes inspired by the interiors of Kerala temples. These were part of his great mural, Yayati, showing an old monarch's regrets about the pleasures of youth. The sculptures formed part of a painted enclosure called Ratri. According to critic R. Sivakumar, arranged like a mandala, they lay down a regulatory geometry for the whole installation. And Ratri becomes the hub of dark emotions around which the vivid vision of Yayati revolves. In his works, Ramachandran has rejected the naturalism, the realism, and abstractions of modern sculpture. In 1991, he visited Papua New Guinea and saw the richly carved cylindrical totem poles there, which resulted in a major change in his style. Inspired by them, he cast Self-Portrait with Ram Kinkar, a 6-foot-tall creation featuring a succession of figures and heads crowned with a composite form of the conjoined heads of Ram Kinkar and Ramachandran. In his 2003 work, In Trance, Ramachandran portrayed himself as Avalokiteshwara, a form of Buddha with a halo of flaming hair. Holding a brush and a bowl of paint, he is shown as both the artist and the creator. Around him are girls dancing with gay abandon. Given that bowls of pigments are arranged in front of the artist's image, it is quite an imaginative way in which the artist has married painting and sculpture.
His face finally. He has to be everywhere. He is everywhere. He's everywhere because he is the creator. He's talking about the ritual. The tree-like girls made earlier, whose arms are within, they're looking like trees and they're not open. Now they are as if in free flow. Their arms are wide. Their colors have changed, their clothes have changed. The patina that he has used earlier is no longer the same patina. Now the patina of their clothes and their hair is different. The glossy skin is the same. So you still see the contrast of work that is done in certain parts and the glossiness of the metal that is seen in other parts. And here he is. This is like a ritual. This is a trance. He is in a trance. He is the creator, and all those around him are what he has created. There is always the woman who sets the trance, the one who is singing, she has set the trance. Her profile is something to see, and the detail of the 3 tattoos on her chin is wonderful. So he's saying, I am in a trance. Do not disturb me. Leave me alone, for I am creating these creatures. And why do we have this? Why do we have a half goat, half face? It's because everything is the same. Man, animal, nature, they all come together. And he is saying on the reverse of this sculpture, do not disturb me. Do not distract me, because I am creating. I don't want to hear your words, because I am creating. And my art and my hand work. My heart, my hand, and my head work together. This is not Ramachandran's quote. This is a quote of a folk artist. So again, we are going to the marginalized communities that he respects and who are the source of his creativity. So this trance is that, and within the trance, these girls are slowly, strangely, while he is in a trance, the girls are slowly, while in a trance, their arms are opening and closing. They are true in a trance, but their gestures are different.
Given his deep admiration for Gandhi all through his life, in 2012, Ramachandran made a 6-foot tall figure of Mahatma Gandhi, harking back to the drawings he had made in 1969 for a mural on the occasion of the Gandhi centenary. He made yet another sculpture, Gandhi the Martyr. This was followed by a third version titled The Message of the Mahatma, where the robe of the image had the words Satya and Ahimsa written in 22 Indian languages.
And the other thing that he has rendered in sculpture and rendered many times is the figure of Gandhi. I'm particularly going to talk about the second version here, show you that. Now, you see just the head and these folded hands, a little bit of the legs. The rest of it is the sheath or a casket from which these emerges, the root at the top emerges. Now, they provide a kind of strong contrast to, in terms of visually, to the portrait and the hands. And the hands, in a sense, is a gesture. Together, you can say it's a gesture of both humanity, of prayer, and of reaching out to other human beings, fraternity in a sense. Now, and I already said in the earlier thing that when he did his Gandhi, he almost thought of it that it should be a miracle that in a century of violence that there should be somebody talking about peace in the way he did. And he quotes the famous quote from Einstein on the pedestal. And he does it in such a way that we can't read that quote from any one position. We have to walk around the sculpture. And when we walk around the sculpture and reach the back, we see that this figure with folded hands, the figure of humanity and fraternity, is actually shot through. That there is that bullet hole, and there is this last words he's supposed to have said, Heva. Now, in a sense, the sculpture is not just about Gandhi, but what we have done to him, in a sense. The way we have made him like a musket for everything, that for all the causes we want. And yet, in a way, we know that he is not an easy person to live with, and therefore we keep angulating him again and again in our lives. So, probably in a sense that the second phase of the work is as much a critic, sometimes a little more strident than the first phase of his work. But there is a continuity. He's a modernist. He is David anyway, but he is become a more strident critic of modernity and some of the elements of what you call the modern world from within it. Thank you very much.
In 2022, Ramachandran also made a portrait sculpture of Rabindranath Tagore in old age, as a tribute to the university founded by Tagore, where he had received his art education.
And the many other things he does, obsessed by three things, and that is nature, the life around nature, animal life, and humans, and the interaction between all that. And he also, when it comes to humans, is not interested in city people. It's a wonderful, happy, carefree people that he finds in the lotus-filled villages near Udaipur. So these girls personify that. They personify the nature they live in, the animal life that surrounds them, and the life that they have. So all the bodies, and since they are personifying nature, many of them are slim, cylindrical almost. They are like trees. Trees are part of forests. Forests are part of nature. And therefore, they have that sense of being tree-like. That's all part of nature. And to make it more, the flowers, the nature, various motifs from nature that spring out on their clothes and their bodies. Their features, if you look from the profile, they are not the features of city people. They are tribals, the high cheekbones, the mouths that juts out, and in some of them, the nose, which is very much like tribals. What he's doing is he's honoring tribals. He's honoring the people who are, the part of society that is neglected, that is not given thought to. But he's honored them. He's turned them into these wonderful creatures that we are absolutely awestruck with. And when you look at this, the beauty of the profile and the front. Now, when he makes a face, it's the coming together of curves and geometry. The geometry of the straight lines of the nose, the geometry that comes together with the curves. And there are curves everywhere, different kinds of curves. The big mouth, the high cheekbones, the tribal face, which has been so glorified. That is the way. And each face is different. He also then contrasts, which he does with many figures. What is heavily motived, what is full of motives, what is full of design, what is full of beauty of that kind. It could be taken from anywhere. When you are an artist, you don't hesitate to see what attracts you from art that has been created in the past. It doesn't matter from where, which world, which civilization. It's just enough that it has an impact on you. You change it around and you make it your own, and you do to it that you wish to do. So there is the transformation of motives that could have come from anywhere. There is also transformation from the time Ramachandran sees these young, very young, laughing, carefree girls in their villages where there is always going to be a lotus pond that attracts his attention. They're the charming little girls who have not a care in the world, which is going to change once they are married and life will be harsh for them. So from the time he draws them, from the time he draws these girls, to the time he works on them, whether he works on them in his drawings, his watercolors, his paintings, his sculptures. So whatever he does, they are transformed. They are glorified from the rustics that they are to what he makes them. So even now when we look at them, I'm filled with awe because they are unknown creatures. They are creatures of the unknown, and they are beyond me. They have a world of their own which I cannot reach. That's the way they emanate. And of course, you also then have the sense of education that's going to come, that's going to be their future, hopefully. And of course, you have to see every little detail. You have to take in every necklace, every nose ring. It's beautifully done. And here, it's so nice the way her hand is resting on her chest and the necklace is coming over that. He always combines the smooth, the glossy, the polished with the mode design.
In 2006, Ramachandran made a large group of sculptures titled Bahurupi, Man of Many Guises, where he sees himself in a variety of forms. He is seated on a 6-foot square base like a meditating Buddha, touching the earth with both hands. He is surrounded by himself as a composite goat man, which has his head and includes 4 apsaras representing the 4 seasons. Another figure in front shows the artist as a tortoise. It is a creative vision where he can be seen reflected in every creature. Bhil women have also figured among his sculptures over the years. Around 1989-90, a series of encounters with Bhil tribes consolidated Ramachandran's ideas of working around their lives. Ramachandran wrote, "The physical features of Bhils and the environment in which they live had certain qualities of mystery unknown to urban people. The phenomenal change in his attitude and work started from Beneshwar, Rajasthan, where the Bhil tribe congregated every year on Magh Purnima Day. Later, he studied the twin villages of Undri and Pai near Udaipur. He sat down at different points to study the plants, trees, flowers, birds, and villages dotted with the tiny huts of the Bhils. He said, "The numerous sketches and studies I made in Beneshwar, recording the cultural ecology and harmony which existed in the simple and frugal lives of the tribals, as opposed to the pomp and show of urban social ceremonies, laid the foundation of my new ideology of working. It created a new grammar of Ramachandran's paintings, watercolors, drawings and sculptures. According to Ella Datta, he makes use of impressions from diverse sources: primitive sculptures of the Pacific Islands and Africa, Chola bronzes, stone pillars of Kerala temples, ancient Chinese bronzes, Buddhist stupas. One may see fleeting glimpses of these sources in his sculptures. But ultimately, what he fashions is born out of his own cultural roots, his sense of fantasy, his memories, imagination of his subconscious impulses. As to his technique, in 2003 he told eminent art critic Yashodhara Dalmia, "First, I do it in clay, and then cast it into plaster, and then ask my assistants to finish it, the kind of surface it requires. But when I am working, I was maybe a little careless, so all these bumps, ups and downs have to be smoothed out. Then they get a wax cast of it. Once I get the wax cast, it is mine. Then I start working on it. All the quality, the drapery, the hair, the details, the lines, it is just like a brush line. I work with threads of wax and get very precise lines." He also uses the lost wax process. "Yes, I do use it," he told Dalmia. "The casting is not done by me. Once I finish it, I send it to the caster, and I know some fine ones." The exhibition organized by the Vadera Art Gallery features around 80 sculptures by Ramachandran that employ tribal, folk and classical elements. Says Arun Vadera, director of the Vadera Art Gallery, "We are proud to be hosting this monumental sculpture exhibition by Ramachandran. The works in the show span decades of the artist's dedicated approach to the medium, and it is a special moment that we are excited to be celebrating with the artist. We hope the exhibition reaches a wide and varied audience in both the spaces. It is a privilege to be sharing the work with everyone." Known for his monumental canvases, resplendent oils and watercolors, and extraordinary drawings, not much has been seen of the large body of sculptures Ramachandran has created in his long career starting from 1964. For the first time, this exhibition brings together almost all his sculptures created from 1974 to 2023. A unique show of his large and small bronzes, ceramics, and groups of them. Ramachandran has adapted tribal, primitive, and classical Indian sculpture to forge his totem pole kind of imagery, resulting in highly stylized, pillar-like works with decorative linear forms adorning them. The thin wax thread plays the role of line drawings, breaking the flat surface of the sculpture with complex visual patterns. On close observation, one discovers they are fragments of nature with plants, creepers, flowers, and insects functioning as allegorical suggestions of costume, hairstyle, and ornaments. This body of sculptures constitutes an independent inquiry into how to employ the tribal, folk, and classical elements of Indian sculpture without any significant reference to the academic practice of image making.
coming back to what is the beginning and what is the ending. The birth. It is the birth. It could be the birth of a baby. It could be the birth of Krishna. But we come back to the lotus leaf, which is Ramachandran's obsession. The lotus leaf in many paintings, countless paintings, in sculptures. That is always his obsession. And the baby that rests, the perennial birth, the birth of creativity, the birth of a baby, the birth of creativity, the birth of nature, the birth of the world around us. That is the final message.
Yashodhara Dalmia, in a 2003 interview, asked Ramachandran what he enjoyed more, sculpture or painting. His answer was, "I enjoy everything. I enjoy doing children's books, designing stamps, painting. I have no watertight compartments. When I do something, I do it with my heart and soul."